What's happening, everybody? On today's show, a ton of news ahead of week 2 as we go around the conference, getting you set for 2 big SEC games this weekend. We got Kentucky at Florida, South Carolina at Arkansas, some big non-conference matchups as well, Alabama at Texas. We'll preview a bunch of them with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Locked on SEC starts right now.
Locked on SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use our promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. By the way, our YouTube channel continues to grow. Trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. If you have not done so yet, just take a quick second. Open your YouTube app, search Locked On SEC, just hit subscribe for us. You're going to help us get to our mark where we want to get. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
We got a big one on Saturday morning, at least in terms of names go, as Alabama heads out to Texas to play the Longhorns. It's a big matchup as Steve Sarkisian, the former Alabama OC, plays host to his former mentor, Nick Saban. And on the SEC media teleconference this week, Nick Saban talked about the big play potential for the Longhorns. He said, look, the first thing they have is great balance. They do a really good job of running the ball with Bijan Robinson. A lot of big plays. They may come off that run game with play-action passes. They got good players to do it. It's a combination of those things. The fact that they have great balance, you can't play one-dimensional against them. Of course, Alabama last week did a pretty good job of running the football with new running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Of course, we saw Bryce Young take off and run it a bunch. And, of course, the pass game was there as well. But Alabama got plenty of veteran leadership on this team when you include Will Anderson and, of course, Bryce Young. And Nick Saban talked about it. He said, Will does a great job. He sets a great example for everybody on the defense. The players respect him. He embraces that leadership role. And we have other guys who do that very well, too. So those guys have all been really great leaders for us this year. We'll see if they can lead Alabama to a big road win over the Texas Longhorns. Look, I know the spread is still like 20. It still would be a nice win for Alabama to go in there to a hostile environment and win that game. We'll talk more about that with Lyn Scarbrough in just a little bit. Over Kentucky, Mark Stoops, he is getting ready for a big road trip out to Florida this Saturday, and the Wildcats are already set to be without running back Chris Rodriguez, but as we mentioned earlier this week, reports came out that backup Ramon Jefferson tore his ACL, could miss the remainder of the season. That leaves Kavosiey Smoke to get the majority of Kentucky's carries this week in the backfield. Redshirt freshman Lavelle Wright has been listed as the backup, while Mike Drennan, Tennessee transfer D. Beckwith, and true freshman Sam O'Horo are all on the roster. Offensive coordinator Rich Scangarello said, I have yet to be anywhere where I've gotten through a season without having running back injuries. It's just the nature of that position, the physicality, what we ask guys to do. You got to be ready for it. It's next man up. And the cool thing is we have built a deep room for this reason. I'm excited for these guys. They're playing good. So once again, no Chris Rodriguez. Can they get it done with Kavosiey Smoke and some of those other guys? We will see. But the Wildcats did get a big win over Miami of Ohio last week. Now they're heading out to the Swamp to try to stop quarterback Anthony Richardson, who got a big win over Utah. Mark Stoops asked about playing a guy like Anthony Richardson. He said, look, it's tough to single any one thing out with him. He has a talented arm. Everybody's going to say what an athlete he is, but he can rip it, and he throws the ball very well. As for his own quarterback, Will Levis, looking to improve off of last week. Mark Stoops said with Will, like any great quarterback, teams we're playing are going to change things up on him. We expect that this week. Will's playing at a really, really high level. Made some good throws last week while he was under pressure. Meanwhile, for Billy Napier, he's dealing with rising expectations in the Swamp after their big monster win over number 7 Utah. Napier said, I think obviously people want to watch us play and develop an opinion about your team, which is positive, but in reality, it means nothing. It means as much going into week 2 as it did in week 1. We watch the film, can see we have room for improvement. I'm hopeful we can learn from our experience and continue to get better. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. I know that's coach speak, but that's where it is. Napier said the Gators have to turn the page very quickly. Said, I don't know that we've got time to decompress. You try to enjoy some time with your family. Try to erase the board and move on. You don't have time to decompress. You learn what you can. That's the important part. Another big game coming up this weekend. It will be the Arkansas Razorbacks playing host to the South Carolina Gamecocks, coming to Fayetteville on Saturday. Both teams looking for a win, looking for a 2-0 start to the year. Arkansas could be getting an important piece of its backfield back on Saturday. Junior running back Dominique Johnson. Razorbacks were without him in the season opener. Sam Pittman said that could change this week. He said, I thought he's looked good at practice. I still think it's up in the air whether we'll play him or not this week, but I think he certainly has improved. And so we will see if Dominique Johnson gets in there at running back for the Razorbacks. Now, as for their quarterback, KJ Jefferson, Sam Pittman said, I thought he played very well against Cincinnati. I thought we played well in the run game. I don't think we were at a standard up front or at our standard as a team. Cincinnati had a lot to do with that, but we got to get better. KJ made some good decisions in the run game, and he'll get better as the year goes along. As for defending Spencer Rattler, Sam Pittman said, I think he's still a really good player. He's dangerous with all the throws. Those are really, really great long ball. We have to keep him inside the pocket. When he gets outside the pocket, he's the most accurate quarterback I've seen in a long, long time. He's an excellent player who has a strong arm and can run. As for Shane Beamer, he was talking about his opponent, the Arkansas Razorbacks, this week. And Beamer talked about KJ Jefferson. Said he is certainly dynamic. He's got size. He made some throws on Saturday. Because of his size, people have a hard time getting him down. He's able to get himself out of trouble and throw downfield. He's not always looking to run. So very complimentary so far. Arkansas, Shane Beamer at South Carolina and Sam Pittman at Arkansas. But they'll kick off early. It'll be a noon Eastern kick on Saturday on ESPN. Meanwhile, over at Georgia, Kirby Smart talking about his team. And while it didn't look like they had a lot to improve on, Kirby said they can get better. He said, why would I not want this team to improve in everything? You go with the assumption that you always need to improve. If we're good at something, we want to be better. If we're not, we need to improve. Making less mistakes is our goal. The Bulldogs will probably look even better this week. Playing Samford, it is not expected to be close, but we'll see what the Georgia Bulldogs can do. Keep up that offensive momentum against Samford this weekend. Meanwhile, over on Rocky Top, Tennessee Vols have a big one heading out to Pitt. Tennessee, of course, lost a heartbreaker last year at home to Pittsburgh, and they're looking to avenge that loss. The game is one of the bigger college football matchups. Pittsburgh ranked number 17. The Vols are ranked number 24. Josh Heupel kind of downplayed it, talking to the media. He said, look, as far as rankings, those things don't matter at this point in the year. The challenge for us is to prepare the right way and be the best. We want to be a great competitor for 60 minutes. Excitement is we understand they're a really good team. They're physical, they're tough, they're a smart football team, and this is our next game in that journey. To win Saturday, Tennessee going to need a good showing from Hendon Hooker, who's been very good so far. Heupel liked what he saw in him, saying very decisive, was making the right decisions, took care of the football in a really good way. I think he's got a really good grasp and understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. That'll be a 3:30 Eastern kick on ABC. Can't wait for that one. Meanwhile, over at Auburn, it is Brian Harsin who is trying to get his team ready, coming off of the 42-16 win against Mercer. Now they will take on San Jose State. Still a little mix-up there at the quarterback spot. TJ Finley, backup Robbie Ashford playing a lot. And, of course, there's that sentiment. If you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have any. Brian Harsin, though, thinks it's a positive thing. He said, I think it's fantastic. I've loved when I've done it in the past. I think it makes our team better. So Brian Harsin loving playing both Robbie Ashford and TJ Finley. As for losing his center, Nick Brahms, before the season, Brian Harsin talked about that and said, Nick is a great person. He cares about his teammates. These are his friends, and he's still going to help this football team. Brahms was retired from football, but is hanging around the program to help out in any way he can. We'll see what Auburn does against San Jose State this weekend. Over at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin continuing to figure out his quarterback spot. On his press conference this week, he said that Luke Altmaier, of course, will be the first quarterback out there on Saturday against Central Arkansas. Kiffin talked about the situation, saying, look, this is going to make the guys competitive. They need to keep working, obviously. I'm not going to say it's the best thing, but it is what it is. We've got to find the best guy. Jackson Dart last week went 18 for 27 for 154 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Wasn't all that great, but now we'll get to see what Luke Altmaier can do. Earlier in the week, Kiffin did say it's not ideal, but Luke Altmaier will go out there and see what he can do. Over at A&M, at Texas A&M, they will take on Appalachian State at home on Saturday. And Jimbo Fisher said that the Mountaineers, dangerous opponent. App State nearly came back to beat North Carolina this past Saturday. Mountaineers failed on a 2-point conversion attempt in the fourth quarter that would have given them the lead, or could have even set the game to overtime. It was 2 different 2-point conversions that they failed to get. Instead, they lost 63-61. Appalachian State scored 6 touchdowns and 40 points in the fourth quarter. Jimbo Fisher asked if that got his attention. He said, that hasn't been done, has it? Wasn't that a record? Very explosive. As much as we get caught up in what they did, how they did it, and why they did it, maturity, 5th and 6th-year guys, that's where their culture has really helped them. Fisher also added, I look at them as a true Power 5 team and a team that can compete in any conference in America. Number 6, Texas A&M and App State will kick off 3:30 Eastern Saturday on ESPN2. Now, Texas A&M, they've been very active in the name, image, and likeness category. Athletes at A&M reportedly pulled in $4 million. The football team received more than $3 million. According to the Eagle newspaper in College Station, through the Texas Open Records Act, football players earned $3.3 million over that stretch of the past year. And some people think they're making even more than that now. So that'll be just an interesting thing to track as far as NIL deals go. By comparison, Texas's athletes earned more than $2 million through the majority of this past academic year. A&M did get some good recruiting news. I like this transition. They picked up offensive lineman TJ Shanahan Jr. for the 2023 recruiting class. He's 6'4", 310 pounds, number 62 player from the state of Texas, number 150 nationally. He's A&M's 11th commit so far, joined 6 other 4-stars and 1 5-star in the class. Not connecting the dots there, not saying NIL had anything to do with that. Over at Mississippi State, Mike Leach and company, coming off of their big win over Memphis, they're preparing for a game at Arizona, and then they have to play LSU in week 3. Mike Leach talking on the teleconference, downplaying the idea that his team's experience equates to an advantage of going on the road the next 2 weeks. He said, look, I don't know how veteran we are exactly. We got some guys who've played in the past, but we're still kind of young in a lot of spots. Leach also asked about facing Arizona sophomore quarterback Jaden DeLaura, a player that Leach is very familiar with. He said, I recruited him and signed him at Washington State, so I think a lot of him. He's a good player. I think he has quick feet. The ball comes off his hand real quick, and he's real competitive. That'll be an interesting one watching Mississippi State play at Arizona this week. Over at Mizzou, Eli Drinkowitz and Missouri, they got off to a 1-0 start with a win over Louisiana Tech last week. They allowed just 8 yards on 22 rushing attempts against Louisiana Tech. That made them number 1 in the country in rushing defense. Eli Drinkowitz said this week that won't matter. He said, look, it's a totally different challenge and mentality going to play at Kansas State. They pride themselves on being a tough physical team. They have one of the best running backs in the country in Deuce Vaughn. So what happened last week does not have anything to do with this week. Vaughn last week against South Dakota ran for 126 yards on 18 carries. It'll be a fun one. Another fun non-conference road game with Mizzou going to Kansas State. Over at LSU, Brian Kelly and his team trying to rebound from their loss to Florida State on Sunday night. They had 2 muffed punts by wide receiver Malik Neighbors. Brian Kelly asked this week where they stand when it comes to punt returns. He said, I think we all know what we want to see, and that's obviously fielding the ball cleanly. We've added some additional drills where we have some distractions in front of the returner, forcing him to get his eyes properly trained. Malik's going to stay back there for some work. We're not going to fire him from his duties. Sage Ryan has been back there as well. We have a couple other younger players we're going to get some work in. LSU gets a home game against Southern this Saturday, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on SEC Network. And that game has been announced as a sellout for LSU. Their capacity, 102,321, the 5th largest in college football. First home game under Brian Kelly. Let's see if he can get a victory for the Tigers and get them in the win column. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, We're going to talk with Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports. Don't go anywhere. Want to remind you guys, when you're cringing at the pump, to get an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant. Inflation is hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. That's why we started using the Upside app. Upside is an incredible app for anybody who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, you can earn cash back thanks to Upside. To get started, just download the free Upside app, search for it in the App Store, use our promo code LOCKED, LOCKED. You're going to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, you can claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit or debit card, and you will get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Our Upside users earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download it right now. Free Upside app. Use our promo code LOCKED. Again, that'll get you $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. It's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using our promo code LOCKED on the Upside app. Go do it right now. Going along here, Locked On SEC. One of our favorite guys to get on every week is our buddy Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports, and always good to catch up with him. And Lyn, good to talk with you, man. It was a really good week one in the SEC and in college football. Let's jump right into it.
It was a good week, I thought. You had some really, of course, you had some blowout games, but you had some really exciting games that came down to the end. That's really starting with Penn State and Purdue on Thursday night. That was a classic drive by Sean Clifford to bring Penn State back for the win in that ball game. And then you had the two Florida teams, Florida and Florida State, with Florida winning at the very end and Florida State winning at the very end. And I really thought both of those games had some really poor coaching in them. I think the next time I coach a game will be my first one, but I hope in my first one I wouldn't make some of the coaching mistakes that I saw made in the last minutes of those two ball games.
Well, Lyn, we know if they're going to have a chance to win this when the Texas Longhorns, they're going to have no coaching mistakes, but Alabama going out to Austin. It's going to be an early one. College game day is going to be there, an 11 a.m. Central kickoff. Alabama, Texas. I look at it, Lyn, and I say, you got Steve Sarkisian, who's a brilliant offensive mind. You got Quinn Ewers, who looked great at quarterback. You got Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the country. And Xavier Worthy's a great receiver. Yet here we are. Alabama's a 3-touchdown favorite. Does Texas have any chance to hang around in this one?
Yeah, the line's too big. I mean, I tell you, I'm not saying this just because there's Texas people in our audience, but Texas is one of my favorite places to cover a ball game. If you can't like the tradition at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, then you ought not to go to a football game. I mean, they got that flag that covers about half the field or 2/3 of the field. I actually watched them fold that flag up one time when I was out there. It's amazing. They got Big Bertha, that drum that I think them and Purdue have the two biggest drums in football. You got that cannon that shoots off when Texas scores. Got the Bevo down in one end there, and then when the Texas players come out and look up at the crowd and do that hook 'em horn sign and do eyes of Texas or upon you. I mean, you're like behind 14-0 before the game even starts, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, this is great. And you're thinking, no, wait, I'm the opponent. So I think Texas just has great tradition, both in their winning and at the stadium. It's a tough place to play. With that being said, and you're right, Robinson, they got a great running back. They got a very effective transfer quarterback. It's a solid team. The coaching staff solid, and they're a 3-touchdown underdog. Alabama would have to play a poor game by their standards, and Texas would have to play a near They certainly could not give Alabama anything deep, give Alabama anything cheap. So I pick Alabama to win the game, but Texas has enough ammunition that if they'll play a good ball game and get some breaks, they could win the game. I mean, I don't think they will. And if I don't bet on games, but if I were, I wouldn't bet against Texas as a 3-touchdown underdog. I mean, I'd take them in the points. But I see Alabama winning.
Talking to our buddy Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy's Sports. And Lyn, a very impressive win by Billy Napier and the Florida Gators in week 1, pulling off the upset over top 10 ranked Utah in the Swamp. But the story of the game had to be quarterback Anthony Richardson, just showing how amazing he really is.
Well, he was amazing, but he's not alone. I mean, the SEC has got a large number of really good quarterbacks, many that can run and pass, and certainly he's one of them. And I obviously impressed with him, but again, he's one that we were complimenting before the season started. Same as the quarterback at Arkansas, and the quarterback at Kentucky, and the quarterback at South Carolina, and the quarterback at Florida. I mean, you just got some, of course, not forgetting Alabama with Bryce Young. We've got so many really multi-talented quarterbacks in the conference, and you got to give him credit for what he did there. But when you get down to it, if you're the coach and you're on the 2-yard line of your opponent, and you can kick a field goal, you still got time to run another play. Are you gonna call a pass over the middle? Hey, and to the credit of the Florida defensive back, that was a great diving interception. But why in the world was that play even called? Or if the quarterback improvised on it, for heaven's sakes, tell him to quit improvising or get him out of the game when it's on the line. If Utah doesn't throw a pass to the middle of the field in a cramped situation and Florida intercept it, then they either kick a field goal and go to overtime, or they score a touchdown and win the game. So with all the good that Jefferson did, they would have lost if somebody hadn't gone brain dead.
Richardson
on Utah's side of the field. I mean, Richardson. So but yeah, I mean, he did great. No question, he did great. But you got to give him great credit. And what it does, it sets up a game. I've been saying, I've said it on with y'all, I think. I've been saying Kentucky was my dark horse in the East, and picking Kentucky to knock off Florida, and them it be them having the chance to beat Georgia in Lexington. Kentucky won by a comfortable score on Saturday, but they were sluggish for what I thought they would do, while Florida beats the number 7 team in the country. Forget how they did it; they did it. And so now, if Florida, I now will lean toward Florida winning that ball game. Where before Saturday, I would have leaned toward Kentucky winning that ball game. If Florida wins this game, then they're not only 2-0, but they're 2-0 against 2 ranked teams, against 2 teams that are going to have a good record.
Yeah, that's
suddenly that was a big win for Florida guys.
It suddenly becomes a little bit of a threat to Georgia in the East if Florida is better than people expect. Another one that's going to be interesting, Lynn, Appalachian State is going to Texas A&M, and the Aggies look good in week 1 against Sam Houston State. The run game was a little bit struggling, but the defense looked really good. But you picked App State to give North Carolina a game last week, and they certainly did. What does App State bring into Texas A&M? Can they give them a little bit of trouble?
Yeah, I think they can. I not only picked App State to give North Carolina a game on the picks that we do for Lindy's, I picked App State to win the game. And that, I was kind of brokenhearted for them. Off the subject a little, that quarterback for App State, do you see what they did in the fourth quarter? They had 336 yards of total offense and scored 40 points in one quarter and lost. They did, guys. They did enough. They got enough yardage in the fourth quarter. If they'd done that every quarter, they would have had 1,300 yards in total offense, not combined, but for one team, and they lost. But anyway, yeah, Appalachian State can go in and, I mean, technically they could win the game, but I think probably their heart has been torn out of them now, and I can't see them going down and beating Texas A&M. But yeah, if A&M's not careful, Appalachian State's a good ball team, and not just this year. I mean, they've had a good program for years now. And I mean, it was a long time ago that they beat Michigan in the Big House, but but it's still the same program. And they've beaten some Power 5 conference teams, and they're a good program.
Quick one before we get out of here, Lynn. Auburn, looks like they got a little bit of quarterback controversy. They run this kid, Robbie Ashford, out there as the second string, and he takes off running on a 60-yard run and looks really good running the football. They got a big date with Penn State next week. You think they're still going to play both quarterbacks?
Sure. Yeah, and I've already been asked that same question this morning on another radio show, and I really don't see a controversy. The thing I was surprised about was that Calzada didn't play. And here's the thing, they had an hour and a half rain delay. And I was at the press box at the game, and Calzada was over on the sideline throwing when the rain delay came. And I really believe probably in Auburn's next offensive series, they would have put Calzada in the game. They had a 35-3 lead or something. And I don't think that I don't think Mercer had but 3 or 4 first downs. So I think they're probably going to go ahead and put Calzada in, and then the rain delay came and changed things. But I think both of them did well. Finley threw a couple of interceptions that guys. He's got to start reading the field deep. He threw 2 deep passes that were intercepted when there wasn't an Auburn guy that was close to catching the ball. But they're helped by having the run attack. Bigsby had about 150 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and Jacquez Hunter, his backup, scored 3 touchdowns. So their running game's solid. But I was asked about a comparison with C.J. Leak and Tim Tebow. And if you remember, Florida won a national championship and didn't lose a game when they had Leak being the Finley type quarterback and Tebow being the Ashford type quarterback.
Chris Leak, his brother.
Yeah, Chris Leak, that's right. And so I don't see any reason if it's working well, why not use 2 quarterbacks? You have to prepare totally differently for them. We're real familiar with Robbie Ashford. He's from Hoover High School. That's been more or less the predominant program in the state of Alabama for the last 10 or 15 years. And that's before I moved down to the lake down here. I was in the area where my kids went to Hoover High School. And we've seen Robbie Ashford a lot. He was good enough to go to Oregon and would have been the backup quarterback at Oregon. And so kind of interesting that Auburn sends a quarterback to Oregon, Oregon sends a quarterback to Auburn. But anyway, I was not at all surprised what Robbie Ashford did because I know what he did in high school. He led his team to the state championship. So, I mean, they've got 2 good quarterbacks. The question is going to be what they do. I mean, they'll beat San Jose State unless it's an Old Dominion over Virginia Tech type game. But then the big game is going to be Penn State. And I think you'll know a whole lot about Auburn. If they beat Penn State, they could be a contender. If Penn State beats them badly, then Auburn's going to struggle to win half its ball games. But for now, I know a lot of people around the country are viewing it as quarterback controversy. I tell you, none of the Auburn fans or people down around Auburn are viewing it as controversial. They're actually looking at it as a positive because they got 2 guys that can play.
He is one of our favorite segments every week. Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports. Lynn, thanks for the time, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys.
All right, that's Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports as he joins us every week to talk all things SEC. And that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Again, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Just one more reminder, go pull up the YouTube app, search Locked On SEC, and hit subscribe and help us get some more followers there. We're chasing 2,000, getting pretty close to it. So give us a follow there. Now that you made us your first listen, now you can make your second listen. Check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza getting you ready for the NFL season, which starts tonight. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, getting you set for the weekend. We'll give you our picks, our betting lines. We did pretty good last week with our picks. So got some big ones happening this weekend. We'll make our picks tomorrow. Make sure you're listening and subscribed. This has been Locked On SEC. Talk to you guys tomorrow.